Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our class through Money Smart on insurance. The class today is going to really be talking about how you manage risk because we know if there were no risk, we wouldn't need to have insurance, right? And we also want to know what the laws require, what kind of rules and regulations are happening in your area, in your state, in your local community, and also federally. What does federal laws say about you, your business, and your risk management through insurance? So my name is Brenda Bryant. I'm an instructor here at UNR Extension, and I want to welcome you to the class. Let's get started. So hopefully you have your participant guide. This is in conjunction with the Urban Chamber. And so this is all on their website, and the guide is free, of course. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, some of the things that we want to look at are what kinds of insurances are out there, what's necessary, what's required of you as a small business owner, what kind of insurances that may not be required, but things that you should be considering for your business, and why insurance is important to you as a business owner. So we're going to think about all throughout the course, what do you know and what do you want to learn about insurance? You already know a lot about insurance because you probably have medical insurance or homeowners insurance or renters insurance or automobile insurance. So you already have some things in your life that you cover. Now, what do you need in conjunction with that to cover for your business that makes you feel that you are as secure as you can be? Beyond what do you need, what does the government, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether it's local, what does the government require? What types of insurances are out there? Why do you have to have one insurance versus another? How do you select what kind of policy you're going to get? Who's going to be the agent? How reputable is the agency, etc.? What is specific to your location? So, for instance, we are in Nevada, and California went through a lot of devastating fires. Is that something that in Nevada we need to be thinking about too? Because a lot of that debris and smoke, etc., came from California into Nevada. Well, what if Nevada had a fire like that? Are you covered? Okay. And then once you get the insurance, how do you use it effectively to take care of you and your business? So state and local requirements are quite necessary. And what I'd recommend highly is that you go to the insurance commissioner's website and find out what is necessary in your area of the country. States regulate a lot of this insurance, and they're going to be very specific about what they're looking for you to do in their state. Look at your medical insurance, okay, and make sure that that medical insurance covers what you need it to cover. These are conversations that you want to have with your insurance agent. Now, I know you can go someplace online and get insurance, but I would have you think twice about that because, especially if you're new to the business world and you're new to having these rules and regulations that you have to follow, it's really nice to be able to sit down across from someone and have a conversation. Ask those questions that you need to ask, get clarification on what you need and why you need it. Also, a big consideration of this is not necessarily just what you need, but also what can you afford. So there's different kinds of insurances that are out there. Most of what you hear about as a business owner is liability insurance, but there's also something called E&O, which is errors and omissions. And that's usually for the services where um, doctors have malpractice insurance. If you're an accountant, you have E&O, you have admission errors and admissions, but you also have something else that covers if you make a mistake with the numbers. And so you're always looking for the what ifs in life and how does my insurance coverage protect me as much as it can against those what ifs. So you may look at general liability, professional liability, liability on your directors or your officers or your management of your business. So insurance laws change, just like tax laws change. You need to make sure that you are up to date on what is necessary for you. And that's another reason to look at having an agent where you can have that conversation with that person and ask specific questions that would be relevant to your business, not just insurance in general, but insurance that is for you and your business. Let's look at insurance that's required by a particular kind of industry you're in, like restaurants or construction or an auto repair shop or a medical facility. If you're a doctor, if you're a pharmacist, etc., if you are an accountant or a CPA, what kinds of insurances that are specific to your industry and how does that help you? Are you underinsured? Are you overinsured? Or are you asking the right questions? Do you have the right agent? So there's a lot to think about when it comes to insurance. And what you want to walk away with is feeling comfortable that you and your agent have done the best job in protecting your business from the what ifs. So when we're looking at professional liability insurance, we talked about that there may be some professions that have additional insurance, and doctors, medical profession is definitely one of those with malpractice and so forth. Also, when you're looking at insurance that might be helpful and wanting to make sure that you're completely covered, one of those insurances is going to be your workers' comp. And what in the dickens is workers' comp? Well, workers' compensation insurance is to protect your workers. And it needs to protect your workers if something happens to them on the job. I am really bad at tools. And if you give me a hammer, I will probably not hit the nail, but I'll hit my thumb. So if I do that on the job and I have to go to the doctor to have that looked at and to make sure that it's going to heal correctly, then what is it that the insurance covers for me going for that medical attention? Okay. So it's looking at if I hurt myself working for you on a job that you sent me on, then workers' comp will kick in and it will say exactly what it will take care of. So unemployment insurance. Now, truthfully, in my long tenure as a working person, I've had to use both. I've had to use workers' comp, and I've also had to use unemployment insurance. Now, unemployment insurance, for many people who went through COVID, unemployment insurance was pretty much the only money that they had coming in. And that means that I'm able to work, but I can't go to work because. And what's the because? Because I'm out looking for a job and I can't find one. I'm unavailable for work because of something that is very specific and is covered by my unemployment insurance. Now, who pays for unemployment insurance? The employer. So you are the small business owner. You pay for unemployment insurance. You pay for workers' compensation insurance. The employee does not, but the employee needs to be covered. So this is somebody who's looking for work and can't find it, and we call it being between the jobs, right? And so if your former employee is between jobs, you're picking up that unemployment. You paid into that unemployment system for that employee. It's federally regulated, but it's administered by the states, and you need to know what's covered and what isn't. You always want to be looking at what the Department of Labor is saying because things change. We know that. And as things change, it is our responsibility as small business owners to know what those changes are and to act accordingly. So there are certain things that you are asked to do as a small business owner, and one of them is to pay for this unemployment. This is very serious. Don't decide, oh, I don't have the money to pay this pay period. I'll just not pay. Don't do that. That's a bad decision, okay? Always make sure that your obligations are taken care of. Always make sure that, especially if you're working with a government institution, you want to make sure that they get the payment that they have told you is necessary to pay. And make sure that your employees get the pay that they have worked for also. So, different kinds of insurance to think about is property insurance. Now, property insurance is this is for business, this is not for your personal stuff. So it could be for covering you a natural disaster or theft. And I talked a little bit about that with just mentioning the fires in California. But I do remember I was working with a client, and I honestly don't remember what state I was in. And when I went to meet the client for the first time, it was, I think it was a month after they had had a disaster. And their disaster was not something that came from the weather or was it nature induced, and their disaster was not something that they started. It was not their fault. They were in a strip mall, and there was a fire at one of the restaurants in the strip mall, and the fire department came to make sure not only they put out the fire, but they keep the fire from flaring up. So they watered down all of the strip mall businesses. and the water was too heavy for some areas of the roof. And unfortunately, this client was in one of those areas and the roof caved in and just destroyed his whole office. Luckily, no people were hurt. All the electronics were dead. Of course, they had buckets and buckets and buckets of water in their offices. All the paper is destroyed. The furniture is destroyed. So what kind of insurance does he have? Did he have that covered that? Because that's not something when he sat down with his insurance agent and said, well, okay, let's make sure we have coverage because the fire department could come in and put a lot of water on the roof and the roof will cave in. That's not even, that wasn't even part of their conversation. So what does his property insurance cover? What does his commercial insurance cover? Does he have commercial insurance? Does he have equipment insurance? Does he have inventory insurance? Does he have loss of wages insurance? Does he have the ability to work someplace else until this place is repaired? So there's a lot of things that can happen. That's why you want to have that honest conversation with your insurance agent. And if your insurance agent says something strange like, yeah, well, the roof could cave and you could be blasted with a lot of water, and you think, oh, come on, that'll never happen. Remember, the insurance is for coverage of the what ifs. I am hoping for you that it never does happen, but let's make sure that when we see it, we have it covered. So we talk about loss of income. We talk about life insurance. Okay. We talk about disability insurance. What happens if someone gets sick and can't come to work? They're not looking for another job. They haven't been fired from this job. And if they could be there and be healthy and working, they would be there. So what about disability insurance? What about medical insurance? Do you offer medical insurance for your employees? Is that a requirement that your particular state says that you must do? I'm throwing in a couple that you may have heard about or you may not have. I'm not sure. One is cybersecurity insurance. The other is identity theft insurance. Please understand a couple of things. One is if you have liability insurance, it does not cover cybersecurity or identity theft. Those are separate policies or add-ons. That is definitely a conversation that you want to have with your insurance agent. Disability insurance. In some states, it is a requirement to have disability insurance. You'll see it as SDI, a state disability insurance. Not every state requires that. So if your state does not require you to have disability insurance, you need to know that. If it does require it, you need to know that. If it does not require it, you need to open that up to your employees to let them know that that's not something that you do in your business. You don't cover them for disability, so they can get some disability insurance on their own. And there are different insurance policies out there, and your agent will know about those, and they'll know about how to help your employees to make sure that they're okay. So as I said before, some of this stuff I've gone through. One of the things that I went through, I was sick for quite a while, months in fact. I was covered by disability and I was covered by loss of income from my employer. I was covered by medical from my employer. So all of that, because it took me a long time to recuperate. So one of the things that's taken off me as an employee is that pressure to make sure that I've got enough money to cover the bills that are coming in. I have enough money to pay my rent. I have enough money to have groceries, etc. So these are things that you want to seriously be having that conversation with your agent about, because it is so necessary that you have the right coverage for those what ifs. And this is what we've just been discussing. It is your business required by law to carry any of these kinds of insurances? And you probably don't know. That's another reason that you want to have that discussion with your agent. And if you've run into some things that the agent may bring up, some different kinds of insurances, like we've talked about right here, and you said, well, that's not required. That may be true, but is it something that you should have anyway? I want you constantly looking at how to mitigate risk, how to be covered as well as possible for the what ifs. The goal in business is not to have the what ifs. The truth in business is yes, they will pop up. And you want to be the one who's prepared. So, lender or investor required insurance. So at one time, I worked for a company that handled insurance for people who purchased cars but did not have car insurance. So when I first started working for them and understanding what they did, I thought, oh, so instead of getting car insurance, this company will cover your insurance, and they'll take care of the insurance for you that you would normally get through an automobile insurance. And I found out, no, that's exactly the opposite of what they did. What they covered was the amount of money that was financed for that automobile, not the automobile insurance that we normally think of with when we're out driving on the road. This was to cover the financing of the automobile, and the person who purchased the insurance, if they did not have complete coverage of auto insurance the way they should, then this particular lender would go to a company like the one that I worked with and say, I want anytime anybody borrows money from us to cover their new car, or it's new to them, whether it was new or used. So to cover their car, we want them to be able to pay for the insurance that's going to be added to that amount of money they paid. So what they had was, I bought my car, I financed it through the automobile dealership, and attached to the amount that I have to pay them, which is the principal and the interest, is also this insurance to cover the loan. So there are some very interesting insurance policies that are out there. What you want to know about is, how do they affect you? And are you in one of those industries where you're asking people to pay you for other coverage? So what you want to make sure of is that you are fully insured, and that the risk of you losing the finance, or you losing because of a disaster, because of an incident, because of an employee who gets sick, etc., you want to make sure that you're covered to the best of your ability, and having a constant conversation with your insurance agent, because things do change. So one of the kinds of insurances that you want to think about as the owner and as a member of the management of the company is what is called key person insurance. And that's people that, um, what if you have an operations manager excellent at the job and decides to retire? What if you have that happens? But what if you have an excellent operations manager and he gets sick and he can't come to work? Do you have a key person insurance that would allow you then to go out and find another operations manager and be able to pay that person correctly? So things to think about as you're looking through this is, how will my business continue? What am I doing to make sure my business continues? And that we do this in an effective way that makes sense for us. So do you have a list of names who could run your business, or that you could trust to run your business even if you got ill? Not maybe it wasn't the operations manager that got ill. Maybe it was you're the person that got ill, who can step in and pick up where you left off. Do you have a list of who would take over your business in the event of death? Do you have a plan for your business in the event of death? Okay, so do you, not only who's going to take it over, but what's going to happen to the business? How do you want the business to continue? Do you have that in writing, and is that covered in your policy? Is there a family member or a trustee named if you decide, if maybe they decide that they're going to liquidate the business because you're no longer there? Do you have a policy that says who's going to be doing that and how they are going to be doing that according to your wishes? So again, it's back to the what ifs. What if something happens? Have you looked at that and said, in case, or if, or what if, I've already got things in place? Have you thought about employee ownership? Have you thought about selling to the employees to provide income to a spouse that's not involved in the business? So maybe this is your business and your spouse doesn't have anything to do with it. What happens if something happens to you? Or what if you have a partner that leaves the business for whatever reason? Does your agreement say that if the partner leaves, the partner gets X amount of money? Or does it say if something happens to the partner, but that portion of the business automatically goes to the next family member? Maybe it goes to the spouse, maybe it goes to the children. Do you have that information? Have you thought through that process? And you want to have that. This is a very serious conversation. You want to have that conversation with your insurance agent because you want to, that's a big what if. And you want to make sure those what ifs are covered. So then there's a thing called a surety bond. And so a surety bond is for the person that you're doing work with, because that person is saying, I want to be sure that my work gets done and gets done according to the contract or the agreement. And so just in case, or what if there's a hiccup someplace, I need to make sure that I'm covered. And so this surety bond says, if there's a hiccup with the contractor and they don't get the work done that needs to be done, but that contractor has a surety bond, we know that we'll get what we need as a business. We'll get the construction completed, we'll get the work done, we'll get things done on time, etc. So That's a surety bond to assure your customer that you are going to come through and do the work the way it was agreed upon with your contract. And then there's a thing called a bid bond. And in some cases, if you are bidding a job for the government, and it doesn't matter whether it's federal down to local, you want to make sure that you know what it is they're asking of you. And are they saying you need a bid bond to submit your bid to the government? This bond says, yes, I have enough money to actually, if I get this job, I can actually do it. I've got the funds that I can take care of this job. So there are different things out there, again, that you're going to be looking at depending on what your industry is, and also what is being asked of you from others. What is being asked of you from the purchasing agent in a government contract? What's being asked of you when you're working with a client and the client wants to feel comfortable that the job is going to be done on time and correctly. So at the very beginning, one of the things I said was if there were no risk, there would be very little need for insurance. Insurance is a very, very large portion of our risk management overview of our business. And we're looking at how risks are managed in the business, but we're also looking at how to protect the things in the business. How do we protect our assets? Because our assets are things that we own in the business. How do we protect our employees in case there is a loss of income? How do we maintain continued financing? How do we protect if somebody hurts themselves on the job with us? So we have all of these things that we're looking at from terms of risk management, legal stuff, regulatory stuff. What does the state say? What do they specifically say about the industry I'm in? I'm a restaurant. What are the specifics that I have to do in order to be fully covered as a restaurant? I'm a construction company. What are the specific things that I have to do, etc.? How do I retain my employees? Well, if I offer my employees some kind of insurance, that's a benefit to them, but it also helps them understand that I want to run this business completely and fully, even when the what ifs happen. I want to make sure that we are covered. What happens if there's a disaster? What happens if there is a breach in our electronics? What happens if there's a cybersecurity brief? What happens if we make a big boo-boo and we have to take care of that? So there's a lot of what ifs that are out there, and understand that there are general what ifs, the big idea of risk management. There are specific what ifs depending on what your industry is, what your business is. So location related considerations will also talk about have an effect on the kind of insurance you get. Are you a home-based business? Do you have a physical brick and mortar location? Are you a business that has a lot of really big equipment and a huge yard? Are you in a strip mall? So there are all these things that you need to think about because they're going to have an impact on what kind of insurance you get and what that insurance specifically covers. So we looked at commercial, we looked at vendors. We have clients, and some of you may be in this space where you just you do pop-ups. What kind of insurance do you need to have? Also, if you are doing pop-ups, check with the location that where you want to have that pop-up. Find out what kind of insurance they have. Because sometimes they have insurance that covers you, and sometimes they don't. I don't want you to get caught thinking that you're covered because you did a pop-up in one location and they covered you, and now you're doing it in another location, and of course they're going to cover you. No, there are no of courses. It is find out when you say you want to do a farmer's market, for instance, is that farmer's market covering everybody in the farmer's market, or are they just covering themselves and you have to cover yourself? Ask those questions. It's extremely important. So now, as you've looked at all these what ifs and you've looked at different types of insurance that are available to you, and you're having that discussion with your agent about what should be appropriate for you, one of the things that you really need to think about is how much is this going to cost? So, can I get the coverage that I need at the price that I can afford? This is part of that discussion that you're going to be having with your insurance agent. Oh my goodness, look at how much this costs. I can't afford this. Okay. What are the alternatives? And that's that back and forth discussion that you and the insurance agent are having. And you don't have it once and stop. You have it on a consistent basis because stuff does change, laws change, policies change, policies and procedures at an insurance company change. I bought a car. And so I have car insurance. And I'm looking at the car insurance and I went, okay, so it'll just switch over to the new car through my agent. Well, my agent told me I'm closing the business. I decided I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm closing the business. So, okay, that doesn't seem like a big deal because it's a big insurance company that the agent had me covered through, so that should be okay. So I called the insurance company and they said, oh, you're a new member. I went, no, I'm really not. I've been with you for several years. No, you haven't. Your agency, your insurance agent has been with us. When the insurance agent closed the business, you became a new and separate customer. And by the way, we don't cover people in your state, or we don't cover people in your city or your county. So these are questions. I'm telling you this because, yes, it did happen to me. And yes, I did get coverage. But what if you don't know that? What if you're making the assumption that if there is a change in agency, you're covered, you're fine? Ask questions, stay up to date on what's happening for you and to you as things change. So the biggest piece of this is how do you find the right insurance company and how do you find the right insurance agent? Well, the first thing I ask people to do is talk to people that they respect and ask them who are they using. I have a friend who's a business owner in the same kind of business I'm in. And I said, hey, I've got to change agencies. What do you recommend? I said, oh, listen, I used to be at such and such company and they were horrible. I'm now at this company and they're great. You need to hear that so that you can have more ammunition in making better decisions about what agency to go through. You can also look at reviews. What are people saying about the company? What does the company do in the community? Are they active in your community? Are they unknown in your community? Are they new to your community? Are they stable? Have they been there for a while? Do people talk about how wonderful it is to work with them? Their customer service is great, etc. Then they talk about, oh my gosh, I can never get anybody. No one will ever answer the phone, etc. So these are questions that you want to, again, have that conversation with your agent. I tell you what, if you take all this advice I'm giving you about insurance, you and your agent are going to have a long conversation because your agent knows stuff about insurance that you don't, and you're asking the agent to share some of that information with you so you can make the best decision for your business. Know what's covered. Know what's not covered. Know if it has to be covered and what implications does that have with you and the risk management. So after you do all this stuff and you're very happy with the agency that you have, you're appreciative of the agent that you have, you can ask questions and you can get real answers. What do you do now that all this is done? Well, one of the things that you don't do is let it sit there and figure out, it's on automatic payment. I don't have to worry about it. What you always want to do is to make sure everything is up to date, make sure that you and your agent are on a very good basis so that you can pick up the phone and call that agent as necessary. And logical, practical stuff. Keep your policies where you can find them because you may need them. And that means keep them in paper form if that's something that you like, but also keep them in electronic form. And of course, with agencies nowadays and with insurance companies, we can go online and we can find the information about our coverage just by going online. But we also want to make sure that we don't just rely on online alone. It doesn't hurt if you're one of those people who likes paper, then you know what, have your paper copy. But make sure that you know where things are. Make sure that you know how to reach your agent or your insurance company when necessary. Make sure that you are staying up to date and not just reviewing this once every year, or maybe you don't even do it every year. But you need to keep up to date on what's happening, even if it's nothing more than picking up the phone, calling your agent and saying, hey, is there anything new that's happening that I need to be aware of, or anything coming up that I need to be prepared for? I would say do this once a quarter. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out conversation. All you want to know is, am I up to date? Has something changed that has an effect on how I run my business and how I manage risk? So you and your agent, that needs to be a very strong relationship. It needs to be a relationship where you feel very comfortable with the agent and that you and the agent can have honest conversations. You may not like what the agent is telling you, but you will like it even less if you don't hear it from the agent and you don't know that something is changing. So make sure that constant conversation is happening. You don't need to bug your agent. You just need to be aware of what's changing. So what's changing in your business? We talked about what's changing in the insurance agent's business or with the insurance policy, but what's changing in your business? What happens if you had one of those, we talked about that lender financing coverage policy? What if you don't need it any longer? How do you take care of that? Who are your beneficiaries? Has something changed? Did your sister is your beneficiary? Your sister got married and now she has a husband. Is the husband one of the beneficiaries also? Or is it still your sister by herself? What are you doing in your business that you need to be talking to your agents about and looking at the changes that are happening with you and match them against what needs to be changing in your policy? What about if your credit's getting better? That's a good thing, but that also affects the prices that you're paying. And of the prices that you're paying, are you paying too much because your credit is now getting better? Can you get a reduction on your policy rates? Do you get credit or refund for cancellations? If you cancel a policy, what is the insurance company's policy on what happens to you at cancellation? So if you're uncomfortable with anything that's happening in your insurance and how your insurances are working, and you and your agent can't seem to get that straightened out, you can always file a complaint with the state insurance department because insurances, insurance companies, insurance agents are licensed by the state. And insurance agents have to take tests, just like CPAs have to take tests to say that they are worthy of your business. They are competent to do what you need to have done. So always know that there's a person in the state that you can go to and say, hey, I'm having a problem and we can't seem to work it out on our own. We need some help. So assuming risk is part of doing business, the bottom line is the minute you said you were going into business, you stepped into risk. You already know that because you don't have a steady income coming in as you did when you had a W-2 job. You don't have someone above you that you can take those questions and those issues to that you don't exactly know how to deal with them. You're the one who brings in the money. You're the one who handles the issues. So yes, you definitely may be stepping into risk. I say may with the tongue in cheek because we know we're stepping into risk. But what you're doing, the business that you have to decide, is it worth the risk? This is so important to me. This is such a passion of mine. I see myself being able to help others because of this thing that I do, that yes, it's worth it to me. That risk is worth it. And I want to go in and get my business not only started, but I want to grow my business. I want my business to be solid. I want to have employees who can rely on their paychecks that they get from me. They can rely on the kind of business that I have and the kind of management and how we run the business. So all of that says, in essence, yes, risk is a part of being in business. So always remember to check with your federal laws, your state laws, your local laws. Know that you're the one paying for the unemployment and the workers' comp, and know why you're paying that, because you want to take care of your employees. If you are in an industry that needs to be licensed, then make sure you are licensed and you're up to date. And how does that affect the insurance you have for your business? And lenders and investors require insurance protection from risk involved with doing business. Absolutely. They're saying, I loaned you some money. I have an insurance policy that says I need to make sure I get that money back, that you will pay me back. So insurance is available all around. It is to help us minimize the risk that we're in. It is not to eliminate the risk that we're in, because I'm not sure they can do that. It also helps us be as a business that we can offer some of these things to our employees. Well, employees say, well, I can get 50 cents more down the street, but they don't offer me the insurance. Okay, so that'll help me keep not only get new employees, but also keep my good employees working with me. And what happens if something happens to the business, or if something happens to us in the business? We want to be protected from that. So we want to make sure that we've looked at all the aspects of what it takes in our business to make it successful. And we've looked at what it takes in our conversation with our insurance agent to minimize the what ifs of our quest for success. We need to evaluate all of this and ask questions. Always, 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 always ask questions. If there is something in your policy, because you signed this thing and you pay for it, know what you signed and know what you're paying for. If you don't ask questions, if there's something that comes up and you're not really sure about it, ask. That's the reason you have an agent. And if the agent doesn't explain it to you in a way that it makes sense, tell the agent that. Because some people in industries will speak industry language. I'm an accountant. I had to stop myself from speaking the language of accountants, accountanese. I talk to you in debits and credits, and I talk to you in break-even points, and I talk to you in gross profits. That may not, you may not know anything that I just said. What if I talk to you in the language that you understand? I talk to you in, show me how you came up with your price. Show me how you came up with the wages that you pay your employees. Show me how your employees work in your business and what they do. Talk to me in your language so that I can be supportive and receptive to you in your language. That's what you want from your insurance agent. You want your insurance agent not to talk to you in insurance language, but to talk to you in practical language so that you understand what you're doing to protect your business. You want to make sure that your records are accurate and that you know where to find them. People in your business need to know who to contact if they need to, and you're not available. And always encourage your employees to do the same thing. Always keep your beneficiaries up to date. Always make sure that you are in the best place and you feel comfortable when you go into the office. Don't, just like the company I told you about, that there was a fire and the fire department put the water on the roof and the roof caved in. Oh my goodness, what do? How well are you covered? How well did you cover the what ifs? That's a weird what if, but you know what? It's still a real one. And maybe in that conversation with your insurance agent, he'd run into something strange like that, and he brings it up to you. He's not bringing it up to you to say to you, get over covered, pay more insurance, get more insurance than you actually need. He's not saying it for that reason. He's saying it for the reason that this is a what if, and it's something that we should actually discuss. So that was a lot of stuff. There's a lot on insurances, but one of the best things that you can do for yourself is talk with people whose opinion you trust. I call them my trusted advisors, my support team. I sometimes pick up the phone and say, this is what's happening. Do you have an answer for this? It's important for you to know that you've got a trusted support team and that please use them because they're going to use you. There's something that you know or something you've been through that they're going to ask you about because that will be helping them. So make sure that you have that support team and that you're asking those questions. If there's any takeaway from all of this that we've been through, and it was a lot, the biggest takeaway is ask questions from trusted advisors. Listen to the answers. If they do not make sense, continue that conversation. Have them speak to you in a language you understand, not in their industry language. So we talked about small business insurance. We've talked about the requirements that are needed. We talked about different kinds of insurances that are out there. We've talked about why insurance is important, the different kinds of insurances, how you go to a trusted advisor to find out about agencies and companies and policies, etc. And what do you need to do before you buy? What do you have in place in your business so that when you get the policy, you know what to do now that you have the policy in place? So thank you very much for sticking around. I know that was a long one, and also I want to talk to you a little bit about some resources that we have here in Nevada that may be helpful to you. One of them is called the Business Roadmap. And wherever you are in your business, as you see on this roadmap, you could just pick that place. We just talked about insurances. So maybe you want to go and find out, all this stuff I said, well, the state does this and an agent does that. You can go here, you can click on other licenses and permits, and it'll give you a lot of resources that you can go to and you can ask questions. You can also use the QR code or you can go to their website by typing it in. This is our program here called the Small Business Education Program here at UNR Extension. We are the University of Nevada, Reno, the extension portion. And so our small business education program is geared just for you as a small business owner. We are instructors here, and we're constantly trying to make sure that we give you the most up-to-date information to help you have the strongest business that you can have. One of the things that we would like to hear from you is what is it that you would like for us to cover? So just drop a note. I'll have my information at the end and let us know what is it that you would like for us to cover that maybe we haven't covered. Because we're constantly going back and saying, what is it we need to update? Because again, stuff changes, right? And we also have a podcast. Now, our podcast is also done in English and in Spanish. And the purpose of the podcast is to bring to you, the small business owner, information that helps you be the best small business owner that you can be. So some of our guests are small business owners, and they're talking about their journey and how that journey can help you in your journey. Sometimes we have politicians on, and we're talking about what's happening in government from local to federal that is specific to the small business owner. Sometimes we have resources on who are talking about this is a new resource, or this is this is an expo that's coming up, or this is a place where you can go and exhibit your products or services, or you can go to a presentation or a workshop. So we try in our podcast to make sure that we bring to you current information and information that will help you grow your business. So a couple of things that we would recommend is, first of all, if you are not a client of the Small Business Development Center, we recommend that you do that, because as I kept saying, we're looking for trusted advisors. This is where some of them are. And you can just go here to nevadasbdc.org, and then on the second screen, you will see this. Welcome to Nevada SBDC eCenter. And if you're new and you do not have an advisor yet, you can click on New Client Sign Up. If you have an advisor and you've lost touch with that person, click on Contact Us and ask who your advisor is. Once you get the information of who your advisor is, make an appointment. They are extremely busy because there are a lot of you out there who want to have strong, growing, successful businesses. And there's a lot more of you than there are of the advisors. So make an appointment. Take the appointment seriously. If they ask you to do something before you go to the appointment, please do it. If they ask you to do something after you finish the appointment, please do it. This is for you and for your benefit. So let's make sure that your business can be the strongest business that it can. And then there's also SCORE. And so SCORE has mentors, and you can do the same thing with SCORE. Go to them and ask to be assigned a mentor, or ask a question. And they will work with you to make sure that you get that question answered, or they can lead you through the process of whatever you're going through. Thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us today and go through the class on insurance. There's a lot of information in there, but the most important piece is have a trusted advisor you can talk to, find that agent that fits into your world easily, and ask the questions, because it's the questions and answers, the back and forth between you and the agent, that makes that relationship strong. Take care. Thank you very much.